Welcome to the 2012 presidential debate between Senator Fella, Governor Rose, and Vice President Texan Tetra. This debate is proudly sponsored by Civnata.com, an anonymous community where anyone can share ideas and join uncensored discussions. Visit Civnata.com to see what the City of Unknown Citizens has to offer. All right. First question will go to the Vice President first. Karvinia is facing both an economic collapse and a wave of terrorist attacks. Which crisis do you prioritize in your first 30 days, and what gets delayed?
The thing about these crises is that neither can be set back. They go hand in hand together, and I think we need to realize that for the most part, while there were other factors involved, the main reason why we're in this economic crisis is because of the terrorist attacks in the first place. So, first of all, we need to get our act in order. We need to start targeting these specific organizations while keeping citizens out of the way, out of harm's way. We're not going to be harming them. Citizens abroad, most of them have no hand in the actions that terrorists in their nation have been doing. We do not want some long, drawn out war. That is not Carvania. Now, on the economic front, we need to start putting our people first as opposed to our corporations. A large part of Carvinia's economy comes from factory workers, as this has become such a tech-heavy economy, and we do manufacture a lot of our own stuff here. We just need to make sure our own people are productive. Then we can focus on how much they're producing.
Superb. Governor Rose, you are now up.
So I believe that we need to focus on our economy because in order to combat these terrorists, we need to first of all make sure that we have a good enough economy to make that we. What's the word? Okay, we need to understand that we have a good enough economy in order to enter into some places that may be harboring some terrorist leaders and such. Although I will say I am someone who prefers not to be involved in conflicts, I do believe that this is one of the times that we need to.
Senator Fella, your response to the question? You can type it out, I'll just say it here. Of course I could, Mr. Senator. Carvinia is facing both an economic collapse and a wave of terrorist attacks. Which crisis do you prioritize in your first 30 days, and what gets delayed? Senator Fella says, I believe that first and foremost, we need to focus on the economic crisis at hand first. If we want to prove ourselves as a nation that cares about its own people, we need to focus on the well-being of the worker and their comfort before we start focusing on foreign nations and their own people. All right, the second question will go to Governor Rose first. All right. Should Carvenia expand surveillance powers to stop terrorism even if it limits privacy and protest rights? And where is your red line?
Okay, so I do not think that we should be spying on our people. It is their right to not be. It is their right to not have mass surveillance level. I mean, we're not a nation which will. We're not a nation which is going to force you to act a certain way in order to be quote unquote safe. adding on to that, I believe that just any, I do believe that some level of online surveillance is needed. As most in the digital age, it's important to have these sort of precautions when it comes to when it comes to today's world. It's important to have precautions online, because you never know what someone's planning there, though.
I see. Senator Fella, you may go. Senator Fella says, I believe that if we are to place any surveillance on our own people, it should be minimal and marginal. I do not support spying on our own population, as it is their right to privacy and their own business. Surveilling our own people would be an act of overreach and tyranny over our nation. Thank you, Mr. Senator. Vice President Texan, you may go.
Could you repeat the question? It's been a good minute.
Of course. Should Carvinia expand surveillance powers to stop terrorism, even if it limits privacy and protest rights? Where is your red line?
I have a very simple, short, and sweet answer to that question, and that is if you are a Carvanian citizen in good standing with no association to any sort of violent or dangerous groups, we shall expand no further power in order to harm your personal sense of security and privacy. Every Carvanian citizen is entitled to their own privacy. And so long as you are a hardworking member of our society who wants to participate peacefully, you do not deserve to have Big Brother looking over you 24/7. That is not Carvania, and it will never be my Carvania. I can promise you that.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The next of the three questions, each question will be tailored for one specific candidate. And Vice President Texan, you're up first. VP Texan Tetra, you were in the executive branch when both the crash and recent attacks occurred. What warning signs did your administration miss?
You know, first of all, when it comes to terrorist attacks, there might be slight memos, but for the most part, the sad thing about it is, for the most part, they tend to be entirely unpredictable. These are truly terrifying groups which want to burrow themselves into every corner of our society and take over by violent attack by violent attack. They have no case of reason whatsoever. So, in that regard, I think we just need direct action there. We need to ensure that these terrorist organizations are eliminated. However, on the economic front, I do think we should have realized that after these terrorist attacks, I mean, come on, the economy was going to drop. It was going to fall. We should have had some preparations in place. We should have had a roundtable meeting, and we should have discussed what we could have done in that situation with the executive branch. I promise Carvinia, the economy will rebound under my presidency because we will have these sorts of conversations which are not happening right now.
Wonderful, Mr. Vice President. All right. The next question is for Senator Fella. Mr. Senator, what is your plan to rebuild Carvinia's economy so recovery money reaches workers and families and not just financial institutions? The keyboard warrior says, if I am elected to be president of Carvenia, my administration will focus on the expansion of welfare and subsidization towards the growth of small businesses. Social Security is of utmost importance to my core values, and I plan to expand it significantly to ensure that every working man and woman can live a comfortable life without having to worry paycheck to paycheck. Thank you, Senator Fella. All right, Governor Rose, this question is for you. Governor Rose, how would your experience running Kavara shape Carvenia's national counter-terror strategy?
Right. I believe that the best. One second. So I think that my experience running the state, as the governor of such a highly renowned and a well-known state in our union, I believe that it is the. I believe that my experience running it won't real. If I'm going to be honest, it won't really tie much into my experience with counterterrorism. As to be honest, I have not experienced any of these attacks on my own personally. That, however, I can promise that I will work together with every single governor I can, and who has experienced these attacks, and get them back under an administration.
Thank you, Governor Rose. All right, next question will go to Vice President Texan Tetra first. Vice President Texan Tetra, how do you fund counter-terror operations while already running historic deficits from economic rescue efforts?
It's easy, really. I mean, you see all these countries which are having massive problems when it comes to counter-terrorist operations, and that's because they're too drawn out, and they stay in that country and they occupy it for far too long. It's not beneficial to their people or to the country which they're doing the counterterrorism operation in. The real solution is in and out quick missions which don't harm civilians but entirely annihilate the terrorist organizations. These very specified missions will drain a very small amount of money while simultaneously allowing us to do a lot to benefit not only our own people but people abroad who are deeply afraid of mass terror as well.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Senator Fella. Senator Fella says, I wholeheartedly agree with Texan on this issue. The main cause of deficits and extensive spending on occupation efforts is because of the military operations continuing long past when they can be ended safely. It is a simple solution, quick in and out. Special operations to destroy terrorism, and then we leave before we worsen the lives of anybody else within those countries. Governor Rose, your response to the question?
Can you repeat the question? My headphones cut off.
My pleasure. Governor Rose, how do you fund counter-terror operations while already running historic deficits from economic rescue efforts?
I've mentioned this before, but we need to improve our economy before we extend any counterterrorism methods at this moment. And I will like to say I also do agree with Texan and Fella on this issue.
Ooh, and thus, as Senator Fella put it, thus starts the I agree between the candidates. All right. Senator Fella, this question will go to you first. Do terrorists thrive more on poverty or ideology? And how does your economic plan reduce radicalization? That was tough, Mr. Vice President. Senator Fella says, I believe that the issue of what causes terrorism can be blamed on both factors. Ideology can cause people to become radicalized, but poverty and poor living conditions sets a fire that makes that radicalization that much easier to happen. Ultimately, my economic plan, which focuses on the worker first, will ensure that every Carvinian is able to live comfortably, and thus radicalization will be much harder to be spread by ideological demagogues who wish to bring our country down. All right, Governor Rose.
I believe that radicalization is mostly spread around by a wait, hold on. What were the two things again?
All right. Do terrorists thrive more on poverty or ideology? And how does your economic plan reduce radicalization?
Okay, so I believe it's a mix of both factors because I mean, for the most part, I believe it attributes to the economy. The ideology is just the base of the group, while the poverty makes it much easier for things to happen to a group of people. If you think about it, if let's say the economy was in ruins and some neo-Nazi group just showed up and was like, "We're gonna make everything better," I assume that a good chunk of people would take the fact that their actual base ideology, it would more so focus on the current situation. Because what do they want? They want change. And, I think a change in economic style needs to happen. We're going to focus on building up small businesses and ensuring that everyone has a fair pay. I think that's the most important thing that we can have here.
Well said. Mr. Vice President.
Yeah, well, it's very complicated, actually. There is a very strong link between the two, but it occurs in a very specific way. So, for a historical case study, let's look at, let's say a nation like Red Cambodia. Let's look at how that originated, right? It occurred when you had this large group of students who went and studied abroad in Paris. They studied ideology, they learned a lot. They became very radically communist in a way that was not seen before. It wasn't even similar to North Korean or Soviet communism. It was its own breed, really. That's how I would put it. And of course, these are very educated people. They have degrees, they speak multiple languages, and then they return to their homeland with the ideology, their struggling homeland, where people don't have enough to eat, they don't have money. There's just not much there for the people. So they return to the countryside and they come there with a promise. They say, hey, we have an ideology which can change the world in a way that has never been seen before. However, you must take up arms in order for it to occur. So you have these uneducated people living in poverty as well, in tandem with the ideologues, coming together to form a rebellion, which of course killed 25% of the Cambodian population. And this is a repetitive process. That's one of the more extreme examples, but that's usually how they always form. It starts with a few educated people persuading people who did not get proper education or do not have proper funds. And that's how large-scale violence and terrorism occurs. Now, if we want to curb this, we have to go straight for the jugular. We can't stop people from getting educated. We can't stop having people from having their own opinions, right? However, poverty is definitely something that can be fixed, and we need to ensure that everyone can afford to live in Carvenia. We need to ensure that we are all connected with one each other, as to ensure that we are not individually isolated. We need to ensure that everyone has enough to eat and everyone has a place to live. That's the only way that we can avoid this extremism without prohibiting freedom of thought.
Indubitably. Excellent. Alrighty. Next question. We'll go to Vice President Texan first. If another major attack happens during your presidency, what authority should the president have immediately without legislative approval?
None. It's integral to the structure of our nation that we have proper legislative procedure. And yeah, even in a terrible situation like a terrorist attack, an attack on our own land and people is totally unnecessary for the president to have some sort of unfound amount of power. It is not something I want in Carvenia or anywhere for that matter. And everything must follow the proper procedures, even in dour and strange times.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Governor Rose, your response to the question?
If I may ask, what was the question? My headphones cut off again.
Of course. If another major attack happens during your presidency, what authority should the president have immediately without legislative approval?
I believe that it shouldn't just go straight to the president. It has to go through legislation. I mean, we're a representative democracy. We're power to the people, as most say. It's not what one person thinks. That shouldn't be final. It's what the people that represent actual people who they represent. And, well, it's what the people think. It's what legislators think their people would want. So in that case, everything, for the most part, other than a few key things that the legislatures do not have, should be going through legislative approval and then onto the executive branch.
Thank you, Governor Rose. All right. Senator Fella. He says, if another terrorist attack happens in Carvenia under my administration, I do not believe the presidency should be given any special authority compared to what it is given already. Given the presidency, any special powers will create a trend of presidential hyper-authority that leads to dictatorial rules. I believe all power should be kept in its current state, with the same systems, with nothing extra given to the presidency. Excellent. Thank you, 3. Alrighty. Question 9 will go to Governor Rose first. Should Carvinia deploy the military domestically to protect infrastructure, banks, and transportation?
I believe that we should be deploying the military. I don't think we should be deploying the military around and our people unless it's in a few key areas, such as government-owned buildings, as those are key to our society. On with this, although it's to protect our infrastructure, we still can't be doing that. I mean, let's say some guy is carrying a backpack around and the military, they're like all like shocked, scared, because who knows what can happen? Anything can happen. So they take precautions too early and they end up attacking the guy who was actually an innocent bystander. I believe that's all that needs to be said.
Well put. Mr. Vice President Texan.
Hey, could you please repeat the question?
Oh, it'd be my honor. Should Carvinia deploy the military domestically to protect infrastructure, banks, and transportation?
No, not at all. Unless we're in a situation where we know for certain, or we have a very high rate of suspicion that some sort of area or spot in Carvinia is under direct threat by some sort of organization, whether it be international or domestic. I think we actually make our own citizens feel even less safe when we have constant patrol and guard on site. I think it's for the best if we have the military take hands off most of the time when it comes to civilian matters, unless we know for sure that there's some sort of danger ongoing. That's the only way we can truly keep our people feeling safe and simultaneously safe when there is a situation of danger. Thank you.
Excellent. Mr. Senator Fella, your response to the question is currently in the works because he's typing it out. Senator Fella says, Carvinia should only deploy our military on our own soil in the case of some drastic event happening. We should only even consider the idea of sending our own troops on our own soil to defend our infrastructure if we already have significant evidence that something might happen. If we send the military on our own soil without any prevalent evidence, we only scare our own people and possibly create even more fear about the situation than what it is already happening within the country. Thank you, guys. Question 10 will go to Senator Fella first. What economic sector must be protected first because its failure would increase national insecurity? Senator Fella exclaims with joy, the economic sector that we must focus on repairing and strengthening. The first is undoubtedly the industrial sector. If the industrial sector falters, every other sector of the economy will not have the goods required to keep their own industries running, and will all fail one by one. The industry is the heart of our nation, and if it fails, everything else fails along with it. All right. Governor Rose, your response to the question?
I agree with Phil on this issue. The industry is certainly one of the most core parts of our nation, and we need to keep it around. As without the industry, we're not going to have without industrial thing without industrial companies, we're not going to have any products to share. Like for the most part, a lot of things nowadays are made in factories, and I think that and without this factory, he's making those good. It's the people are not going to be able to live off of
Mic
even
off.
the cheapest of things.
Mr. Vice President Texan Tetra,
Hello.
your response to the question?
Could you repeat it so I can answer properly, please?
Indubitably, I can.
Thank you.
What economic sector must be protected first because its failure would increase national insecurity?
Look, I have an absolute factories first policy right now. The truth is, we're having a real trouble right now when it comes to workers' rights in these factories. Even though technology is a big part of our economy, our workers there are not being treated as well as they should be. I want to increase provisions to make sure everyone working in this industry is treated properly. And also, general expansion of factory workers, not just limiting it to, technology like laptops, phones, computers, Factory also includes our military industrial complex. Now, you can have your own opinions about that. Regardless, we do produce some integral military infrastructure via these factories. So, if that were to fall, we would lose access to one of the most core domestic production strategies that we have in order to keep Carvenia safe in a time of war. Our personal production is integral to our safety and security.
Well put, you three. All right. Vice President Texan Tetra, this question will go to you first.
All right.
Foreign actors may be backing Carvinian terror cells. Would you impose sanctions even if it worsens the recovery?
Not necessarily, no. I don't think that's necessary at this time, unless we find that there is some sort of direct involvement that these foreign governments have with the terrorist cells. I don't think that's something that we have to do, especially if they're trying to eliminate them themselves. If anything, I think we should help and support them in that sort of scenario. But no, it's not the government's fault, and it's not the people's fault. And really, beyond the government and beyond the terrorist cells, who are really hurting with these sanctions are the civilians of our own country and their country. And that's not something I want to deal with. That's not what I want under my presidency. Under my presidency, there will be no focus on sanctions for these innocent nations and innocent peoples.
Mic off.
We just
Charging
want to do
battery.
quick in and out missions on the people who deserve it. And those are the terrorists who have attacked Carvenia on and on and on. They will be eliminated. I promise that.
Wonderful. Governor Rose?
Straightforward. I just agree with Texan on this.
All right. Senator Fella? Senator Fella, you little rascal. I'll repeat the question for you. Foreign actors may be backing Carvinian terror cells. Would you impose sanctions, even if it worsens the recovery? Senator Fella says, I do not believe we should impose major sanctions on foreign entities, even if they are acting against us. We need to ensure that our relations remain as high as possible. Ultimately, if we are going to put any sanctions on foreign entities, they should be minimal and placed more as a warning rather than a genuine attack against them. Good job, guys. All right, question 12. We'll go to Governor Rose first. Which civil liberty are you willing to restrict temporarily to protect lives, and which one is absolutely non-negotiable? Governor Rose.
Yeah. Just give me a second.
Vice President Texan, would you like to answer the question while Rose is getting set up?
Sure. Can we ask that question one more time?
All right. Which civil liberty are you willing to restrict temporarily to protect lives, and which one is absolutely non-negotiable?
All right. How about none at all? I believe all civil liberties are inherently necessary for a proper functioning nation such as ours. And I think it is insulting that some politicians are insisting that we even consider any sort of civil restrictions at all, even in times of conflict. It is important that Carvinians have their personal freedoms, and I think Carvinians are smart enough to know what to do without the government telling them they need to do this or they need to do that. No, we do not need to restrict civil liberties in times of conflict or attack.
I agree with you. Governor Rose.
There. So, I believe that we shouldn't be restricting civil liberties. However, to stay by the question, I do believe that that if it were to come to it, it would have to be restricting what the press can say, as we all know that the press can sometimes stress out, uh, stress out, and uh, they can sometimes stress out and go far, which will put our people into distress and will at times, which will at times make the situation worse for everyone, and no matter what. But when it comes to what we have to be keeping, it would have to be is everyone's freedom of speech. And if I'm going to be honest, as never mind. Thank you. Jackson, what did you?
All right. Senator Fella, your response to the question. Fella says, the bottom line is none of them. If any rights are stripped away from our citizens, we create a dark trend of allowing the government to take away more and more before we slowly decline into an authoritarian, anti-democratic state. The civil liberty we need to protect the most, all of them. It is simple as that. This question will go to Vice President Texan Tetra first. Which opponent is least prepared to balance security and freedom in a crisis, and why? And yes, you are allowed to mention candidates that are not at this debate.
The job of my candidacy is not to tear someone down. I don't like ideas of taking away the free press in times of conflict. It personally disgusts me, and I find it atrocious, as the number one thing we need during conflict is honest and open reporting. And the only way to get that is through our reporters, through our massive media industry, which is providing the truth to our citizens on the daily. And I applaud everyone who works in that industry, and you shall never be silenced or restricted under my presidency, no matter what. Thank you.
Governor Rose.
Repeat the question.
Of course I can. Which opponent is least prepared to balance security and freedom in a crisis, and why? And yes, you are allowed to mention candidates that are not at the debate.
Okay, well, I personally think that everyone here definitely has the ability and has the everyone here has the ability to balance security and everything in government here. It's just the matter of who can do it the best. Do I think I'm that? Maybe. Do I think text that? Maybe. Who knows?
All right. And to respond to Judge Bipartisan, this debate was specifically for the topic of terrorism. So, as requested. So, silence. And Senator Fella, your response to the question? Senator Fella says, I do not wish to place any candidate as the least able to maintain national security. I do not wish to put any bad relations between me and other candidates, as bipartisanship and governmental unity has been a goal of my campaign since the beginning. To answer your question in a more short and sweet manner, nobody is the least able. Beautiful. I hope to see this in the next election too. All right, next question will go to Governor Rose first. What mistake did Carvenia make after the first attack that made later attacks or a later attack more likely?
Personally, I think that one of the major mistakes is probably just the fact that they didn't intervene enough with security and stuff when it comes to who's doing to make sure that people aren't really doing the best. But personally, okay, I request that Mr. Texan turns off his camera for the remainder of the debate because he may be distracting some of the candidates on what he's saying.
I love
On
the
what
Zoran
we're
smile,
saying.
Texan.
No, but can you
No
repeat the
more
question?
text-based distractions. I pledge. No more Ramaswamy Nikki equals corrupt type stuff.
If you do that, I am going to kill you. I am not joking when I say this. This is a threat.
Ay ay ay.
Anyway, can you repeat the question
Presidential duel when?
now?
All right. 1v1.
All right, repeat the question.
What mistake did Carvenia make after the first attack that could make a later attack more likely?
Okay, I don't think that we have imposed enough of security on our. I don't think we've imposed enough security on government buildings and important landmarks here. As if for people, if it wasn't for people, the lack of security at these first buildings, which had been knocked down, I think that we would have been fine for the most part.
Thank you, Governor Rose. Vice President Texan Tetra.
Can we repeat that question, please?
Oh, I can certainly repeat the question for you.
Mm-hmm.
What mistake did Carvenia make after the first attack that made later attacks or could make a later attack more likely?
Well, that bomb certainly didn't help. By dropping that bomb, we're not only not really curbing the actual terrorist threat, but we're also sort of creating even more terrorists. If you want to look into how a lot of terrorists are created, through some sort of a violent intervention which harms them personally or their family. And then from there, they find other people to join the cause and further spread their influence across the world, bringing nothing but terror to the world, even though, let's say we were just trying to prevent something from occurring. So the truth is we just have to be strategical and we have to be very, very careful. That is how we properly ensure we take care of these terrorists while balancing, intervention and whatnot.
Lord have mercy. Senator Fella, your response to the question. Ooh, woke drug cookies. Are they selling those now? Senator Fella says, I believe that the mistake which hurt us the most was undoubtedly dropping a nuclear bomb on Sahar. If we had dealt with the situation more calmly and utilized diplomacy, we could have come up with a solution to the crisis easier. Instead, we dropped a nuclear weapon on their nation, and that only led to the population of Sahar becoming that much more vehemently against us. Next question will go to Vice President Texan Tetra first.
Hey,
In one sentence, what does a Carvenia that is both safe and economically stable look like at the end of your term?
a land of connection and opportunity for all.
Wonderful. Short, sweet, simple. Governor Rose,
Simply
what
enough,
does what?
simply enough, I think that a uh, simply enough, I do believe that a thriving a nation under my administration at the end would look like a land where industry can thrive for all. I mean, that's what the economy is about. Oh, oh, we need a strong industry and a strong to give us a strong economy to give us strong people. Straightforward. I mean, straightforward for people.
Excellent, excellent. Senator Fella, in one sentence, what does a Carvenia that is both safe and economically stable look like at the end of your term? Well, me personally, Governor Rose, how could you blame Texan on the economy when, like, if someone falls, we got to figure out who
Whoa,
tripped,
whoa, whoa!
the economy.
You're not a part of this debate. Whoa.
No, I'm asking you.
He's allowed to ask questions, though. He's allowed to ask questions to all candidates.
Are you supposed to?
No. This is a troll question. It's a troll question. It is a troll question.
I think that you should be asking this to all candidates here.
Okay. No, I was asking who do you think tripped the economy? How do you
I
fall?
blame Texan.
You think Texan put his leg out and tripped the economy?
Yeah, it's his fault.
Right,
his fault for everything.
Senator Fella says, a Carvenia safe and economically stable at the end of my term is one that gives everyone an equal opportunity at life and where everyone can find prosperity. Hey, Mr. Bipartisan. We're bipartisan, okay? Centrists unite. All right, final question before closing statements, everyone. And yes, BP, I do agree, centrist forever. How should Carvenia regulate artificial intelligence to ensure it boosts economic recovery and security without creating new risks to jobs, privacy, and national safety? Governor Rose, you're up.
I have a very strong opinion on this. I think that we should continue to hold restrictions on who can use AI for jobs and what jobs make sense for AI and to be put in use. Along with this, I think that we need to have at least some jobs where AI can thrive, such as especially in technology and security on the internet. I think that is some of the most important things that we can use AI for when it comes to boosting our economy, especially when it comes to algorithms. Algorithms are quite important when it comes to, especially online shopping nowadays, which can help boost small businesses across our nation, and they can help help bring in more tax money for us to help lower taxes on the people. So that's my thought.
Thank you. Mr. Senator Fella. All right, I'll give you time to type and I'll just give it to Vice President Texan. How should Carvenia regulate artificial intelligence to ensure it boosts economic recovery and security without creating new risks to jobs, privacy, or national safety? Mr. Vice President.
To be honest, for the most part, AI has to be totally blocked. There are some things which we can allow. I think to an extent, text-based AI can be allowed with very stringent regulations. On the other hand, when it comes to other things like AI image and video regulation, creation, along with things like deepfakes, it just poses too much danger, too much of an environmental risk, and takes up too much space in data centers as well. It's overall just not a good use of national energy. I don't think that should be allowed, or at least it should be heavily regulated. However, for the most part, we should be using AI to a limited extent to benefit the future of Carvenians. In the future, though, I just need to stress that we must ensure that all jobs must be kept, and we have to expand jobs even further, as we don't want to enter an unemployment crisis with the next generation. That will end very, very poorly.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. All right, Senator Fella. Senator Fella says, artificial intelligence should be regulated heavily. The only industries I could even think of allowing it in is things like text bots with intense regulations on and when and where it can be used. Outside of that, I do not believe that artificial intelligence should become a major part of our economy, technology, or society at all. It's all because of them dirty clankers! All right. Time for closing statements, guys. Mr. Vice President Texan Tetra, your closing statement.
I want everyone here to imagine an even better Carvenia, a more connected Carvenia, a Carvenia for all. In this Carvenia, we are not bound to our ideology or our region or how far away we live from one another. I want to connect us ideologically with transit in every way, shape, and form. We must come together as one. This is a unity campaign, and it must be treated as such. I think every presidential campaign should be a unity campaign because we need to look out for every single citizen of this great nation. And we need to look out for the world as a whole. However, we must ensure that our own people and our own workers must come first. In many ways, they are currently not. My presidency will emphasize the need for workers' rights in cooperation and tandem with transit expansion and stopping the terrorist killings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Amazing, wonderful, cute smile. Governor Rose.
Okay, so
closing
I'm basically gonna restate what Texan just said. Blah blah blah, socialism. Blah blah blah, woke. Blah blah blah, wokers' rights. Blah blah blah. Did you notice on how he emphasized trans when he said transit? You know, I personally think that I personally have to say, Texan is the wokest candidate here, and fellas, you're relevant. Screw him, get him out of here.
Yo,
Down with the woke. Hashtag bomb them all. Hashtag get rid of the woke. Hashtag socialism is the best. Socialism. All right, thank you.
you want to know the truth about Rose? Rose is entirely controlled by our foreign adversaries' media conglomerations, and that is why she wants to prohibit our media from flourishing properly. You know what? How they're like? They're like, "Get back to work, Rose. Get back to work." And she's like, "Okay, I'm sorry. And she does exactly as she's told by the foreign media conglomeration. That is exactly what occurs.
I am a member of the media, and as an experience, I must say that the media can stress things over sometimes. So I want to stop that by stopping other companies from going overboard with everything. And I personally think that Texan is woke. And as I said, down with the woke. Did you notice on trans woke, gay, woke, gay, trans,
Wrong.
socialism. All right, thank you.
Senator fella, I hope you were typing up a good one. Senator fella, come on, man. Me too. I was also very distracted by this incredible debate.
The Texans
Very
woke.
entertaining. Ah, you sure got him there.
I sure did. Hashtag own the libs. Anyway, that's why you should vote for me. Don't vote for the socialist, and don't vote.
Bipartisan,
for
don't
the,
you dare disrespect our sponsors.
You shouldn't be voting for the socialist, and you shouldn't be voting for the woke, and you should definitely not be voting for the irrelevant guy. He's just going to take away votes. BP, Texans woke, and Texans a socialist.
For the record, economically, I'm a classical liberal. Thank you very much.
Do I have to show
Right.
who you follow on Twitter again?
Actually, Senator fella, it appears, will not be having a closing statement. But
Good.
let's just pretend he said something with aura.
Lord have mercy. That was beautiful.
Holy bazinga!
Oh
BP, my God!
BP, you should vote for me. Get rid of the socialist. Hashtag end the woke.
Hey, Rose, aren't you a registered Democrat?
No. I'm actually.
Hey, when people vote on the ballot, aren't they going to be clicking the Democrat button?
No, they're going to be clicking the
liberal.
They're going to be clicking the button that says my name on it. It says you. Hubba hubba.